Billy, I think it's safe to say that we late here in July 1st, as of the time of us recording this, we can say that probably not getting the July 1st that you would have hoped as a Red Wings fan. Now, our June 30th wasn't particularly terrible. In fact, it was probably overall in value significantly stronger than our July 1st.
With you on that.
But we're here to talk about it. But I want to open the stage up here with no limits, no time, a little bit of a filter. But Billy, I know you have some immediate thoughts in general, a little bit of a rant,
Yeah,
as some may call it.
I would say that it's kind of on our community, the roles that you and I are trying to, do ourselves a little bit and being able to talk some sports. And I would have to imagine that there are some other, well-versed NHL Red Wings fans out there today that are in Metro Detroit and they listen to a radio station today between the hours of 2 and 6. And like myself, I really believe that you were screaming at your radio the way I was. The way the person was screaming back at you, you were screaming back at them, but they couldn't hear you. And I really just want to put it out there that I'm so glad that there are YouTube channels. I'm so glad there are podcasts. You and I have made some good relationships with a couple of them that we follow on Twitter, and you can tell they know what they're talking about. Sure, you can have some differing opinions. That's kind of the big jump between the different channels, right? You find some people that are more patient with Steve, some that aren't, some critical on players, some not. When it comes to my issue with this entity sharing their hockey opinions, it's no longer strictly opinion-based. It isn't oh, wow, you're calling on Alex DeBrincat to be the voice in the room when we have the likes of Perron, Petrie, like all these other veterans, Comfer, who's won a Stanley Cup. You went to DeBrincat to be the voice that gets us out of a slump. That's a little weird. And one of the questions asked on this radio station today is, if Talbot's so good, why would they let him go and take Kemper and pay him twice as much?
To be clear, it was the radio host asking this,
Yes.
not a caller.
Yes. So the radio host putting out the rhetorical question, wanting answers like, hey, you tell me why this team out there would possibly do this. And on surface level, when you ask the question that way, you look bad. You look bad for taking this goalie because no one wants to pay him, right? Completely ignoring. Now, I should also say their hockey aficionado, their big hyped up guy that he's our hockey guy. He's our hockey guy. He's our hockey guy. I've had differing opinions with him. This is the first time that I would actually be able to say, I can't find myself to respect his hockey opinion anymore on things, because if that is the question asked to you and you can't think to yourself that, wasn't there something big involved in that trade on why they got Darcy Kemper from the Capitals? Oh, yeah, it was probably the worst contract signed in 2023. And Pierre-Luc Dubois. So when that radio host who doesn't know anything is asking you, the person who should know something, how do you not say, oh, yeah, by the way, they dumped off an 8-year, $8.5 million a year contract so that they could get that goalie and they didn't have to deal with their mess anymore. Now the big question mark is on Washington on why would you take Pierre-Luc Dubois at 7 years remaining, 8.5 a year, and just completely omitting that. And the fact that they could get rid of Talbot, drop him for nothing. They don't lose anything. They get rid of the worst contract possibly in the league. And then they get a goalie who is arguably just a little bit better than the one that they had. And they would save themselves like $3 million. That is the most obvious choice for the Kings to get out of that contract and get that player. I can't make it more obvious than that. So yeah, when it comes down to the Red Wings, when you look at the market and you're trying to play a little budget, and you can talk about Steve and say that he's going too hard on budget, that's fine. But that is why we got Cam Talbot. Is statistically, he is better than both goalies that we have through his entire career, through the highs and lows of being on, bad Minnesota teams, bad Edmonton teams, being on, I believe, like a good Rangers team for a little while out there. That's why Talbot is here. That's why he's only getting paid 2.5. I don't know how else to explain it to you, but how you don't know about the Dubois trade in that is crazy. And then it's not just like keeping up with NHL current events that I have an issue with. It goes the next step down, and this is when I was angriest. Again, host asks, why don't GMs just offer Sider and Raymond 8-year, 80 million contracts. Why don't they just choke Steve Yzerman? Why don't they just say, hey, you're going to have to pay this guy, or you know what? We take him. And no one speaks up and even mentions the existence of compensatory.
Nobody in that room. Screw it. It's from 2 to 6. It's the Mike Valenti Show.
Yeah.
By the way, love the Mike Valenti Show generally. I've listened to him for a long time. Terrible on hockey.
Brutal.
But there's nobody on that show that this is why they don't talk hockey. Like, there's nobody on the show that would know about compensatory picks. And you would think that they call Kenny their hockey expert on the show, but like then you realize hockey expert is a super low bar.
It means he's watched 40 games in the season.
It means that he has watched hockey before. That's what makes him the show expert. So yeah, it is frustrating listening to. It sucks because you don't really have that local radio station to be able to turn on. Yeah, there's YouTube videos, but those have to get made, edited, and posted. Like, it's cool when something happens with the Red Wings being able to turn on the radio and just kind of jump into a conversation about it and listen to people talk about it. They do better on the morning shows, I feel like, a little bit. Actually, significantly, if you're comparing the two side by side.
One of them. The other one, just as bad.
Which one do you like?
I like Jim. I like Cookies. He actually seems to have like a general concept of the sport.
Costa's good. I like him. He's one of the only ones from 97 one that I actually keep up with on Twitter because I like a lot of stuff he puts out.
Shout out to him when he's wrong on something. Like the only wrong opinion that I've ever heard from Cookies, like that was just blatantly wrong, is the golf stuff. Like that is probably the one that he took like the hardest stand on.
He also owned it.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next point. When he was wrong, he's like, you know what? I take it. Jared Goff is our guy. That's my quarterback, and I'm moving forward with him. So. Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's also, I shouldn't say important to mention, but you guys will find it funny to mention that Billy, I'm pretty sure, is blacklisted from contacting this radio station, at least through text, because he's gotten a little angry at them through text, and now we're pretty sure that they have him like on a blacklist. They don't read any of his stuff.
I did not cuss. I didn't swear. I didn't call nobody names. All I did was throw what Rico was saying. I remember this specifically. I'll bring this up. I don't care. Rico was saying that he didn't want to hear Bill Belichick on a cast for a game because he said, hey, Bill, sometimes less is more. So I just texted in, hey, Rico, sometimes less of you is more. And they didn't like that. And now I don't think they read my text anymore.
So strong opinions on that. So to open it up, but specifically talking about free agency, I want to go through and I want to spit out some names. And I'm not going to go through the ones from last year again, but I encourage you to go look at who we signed last year, July 1st, and you could see why there's a much different feeling. Last year, it felt like we were taking some stabs and we were trying to make something happen. This year doesn't quite feel like it. We are going to go in order of which they happen, but I'm going to, just so there's some positivity, we're going to start on June 30th. We are not going to start on July 1st because this would just be a very depressing section. But we started up by re-signing Patrick Kane. It's a 1-year deal, which I love that it's, I would have loved a 2-year deal, but the fact that it's a 1-year deal, at that point, I don't care about the money. If you're telling me it's a 1 year, pay the guy what you have to. I do love that it's got stipulations. I like that one of them is only playing 10 games, but yeah. I mean, I guess if he's out for the year, we save some money, I suppose. But yeah, how do you feel about Patrick Kane and the money?
It's literally only good. I can't think of a possible negative side effect to any of this. When it comes down to the 1 year, if he felt like he wanted to go test the market and everything, him only getting the 4 in salary means that if we retain half of it, if this season goes the way that the roster's kind of pointing in this exact moment, I would say that it's safe to assume that we are not making the playoffs at this moment at 6:11 p.m. East Coast on July 1st. We are not making the playoffs with this roster.
I'm refreshing it. Yep, it's still the same. It hasn't changed. I refreshed the list just in case.
Might have to re-up that real quick. But, I mean, it would be a good trade piece at the end. You know he's going to be good. Like, he showed what he can be last year when he was healthy. And, yeah, he had a short stint with us where he even missed some more time to be unhealthy. Give him the full offseason to train up, get it all going. Literally only good.
Yeah, last year he was a question mark. He comes in, you have the positivity because it's the name Patrick Kane, but everyone's like, it's the surgery. No one ever comes back from it,
Mhm.
100%. And he came back not just a contributor. There were nights where he was the best player on the team.
Yes.
And every night he was at least in the top three. Even if his performance wasn't at the top of his game, he was always making people on the ice better, and you felt more comfortable when he was on the ice. So having that all season compared to just a section of the season, and then ideally, maybe DeBrincat doesn't have his colds as much of a cold drop. Maybe Larkin stays healthier this year. I still believe this team could be a playoff team simply as long because we didn't lose a ton in the offseason. We're not adding a ton, but you're adding in the sense that now you're gaining roughly half a season of Patrick Kane.
Yes.
Which it's one way to look at it. It's an optimism kind of way of looking at it, but I believe it's true. I believe that having Patrick Kane all year last year, if he would have decided on that surgery situation and joined us at the beginning of the year, I think we're a playoff team. I think there are games maybe we don't blow if Patrick Kane is on the roster, playing in overtime, in a shootout, whatever.
They got in overtime. Yeah. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Point.
So I think there are situations where Patrick Kane would have been there to secure us the one more point we would have needed. So that doesn't feel like too crazy of a stretch there that we could be a playoff team simply by adding him. It's going to come down to analyzing what the teams around us have done. But and I have no problem spending an extra minute on Patrick Kane because almost nobody else in this list is remotely interesting. But with Patrick Kane, it makes me want to ask you, obviously purely speculation, why does he want to do it? Is it he could, after the performance last year, you could make the argument that he could get money if he could get money elsewhere. If he wanted big money, he could get that elsewhere. If he wants a Stanley Cup, he could go a lot of places that are not Detroit right now. Why is he signing the 1 year with Detroit when he had a previous strong section? He doesn't have the worry of the surgery. He has film now of the last few months of, yeah, I can still play. Look at the team I was on. Look what I did. He could have had either of those two needs. He wanted to play in Detroit. He signed for another year. Why?
I would have to say probably for the same exact reasons dominantly that he did last year. I think that there were plenty of other teams that would have given him a shot. But I mean, you saw him when he was a kid. He was in a Red Wings jersey. He's playing with Cat. He's playing with Larkin. Obviously, the relationships and everything that he built here is strong. There's got to be some level of trust in Steve. And I think on top of it is that I think he knows that he's going to have a good idea. The team's going to have a good idea on where we are by the trade deadline. And I think he knows with his $4 million salary that half of it can be retained and he can be shipped off to a team. And instead of making that bet on which team's going to do it, in July, you get to bet later. So, I mean,
or
it's
stick
kind
with
of
what
like,
you got if it ends up working out on the team you're on. So, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it just feels like it's hard to lose is him. Either you stay here and you finish what you started and you make the playoffs. And, we know how big Detroit is on hockey in general. We know how much we want it here. To be able to bring it here would be awesome. And if that doesn't happen this year, then he can just hitch to a new wagon for the rest of the year. And it wouldn't be difficult for those teams to make that space.
How excited are you about the first signing the Wings picked up on July 1st to the point where I'm not even sure if I'm saying his name right? William Lagesson?
I think that's how you say it. I mean, I'll be very honest. Typically, you and I, like last year, the amount of effort that we put into, seeing what these free agents were like and like looking more into Confer, looking more into Sprong, looking more into Hall. Even we did that. And this year, it doesn't feel like there's anything to look at. As much as we would love to be the two voices that are like, guys, you really got to just give this guy a chance.
It doesn't feel like that this year.
Nothing
burger. It definitely feels like there's actually nothing on July 1st to be excited about. Last year, there was some whats, but you could be like, well, I think this is what Yzerman sees. I just don't see anything here to be excited about. So they kicked off the day with signing a defenseman, William Lagesson. It's a 1 year. Looks like it's a minimum.
Nothing burger.
Here he is. We got him. It's a one way. So he'll be. You'll see him in Detroit, I'm sure. As much. I mean, I guess we lost Ghost and we lost Wallman to the trade. So I guess if he's just looking to farm bodies, well, he got that one. I'll skip one really quick, just for the other defenseman, Eric Gustafsson. Got another defenseman there. Two
Sure.
mil. 2 mil, 2 years. I mean, is there
Sure. Why?
I don't
Why?
know.
Well, I mean,
I
we're
really
going to
thought
talk
this would have
about
been the
it.
year.
We're going to talk about
I
it a
thought
little
this would have been
while,
the year
but
you'd go into offseason and be like, let's create a reason to use Edvinson. Like
yep.
let's bring up someone like
That,
him.
that was you and I when we were trying to make sense out of the Woolman trade. So you're
Yep.
opening up spots for
And then
younger
we're
guys.
signing 2 more.
I will
I
tell
just
you right now, give me my second back and get rid of Gustafson or Lagesson for Woolman. There's no reason that either of those guys should be on this roster over Woolman, other than maybe the defensive ability out of Gustafson, but as a high price to play for a Woolman to Gustafson swap and whatever Lagesson can be.
well, they also took a couple stabs at goalies. We scooped up 2 goalies, Cam Talbot and Jack Campbell. You could say that
Why?
Cam Talbot could play and be a contributor. I mean, I hate the goalie one less because last year we did get obliterated in the
Yeah.
net. Like
I,
not like all stat wise, but like all our goalies were getting injured constantly. So
Let me rephrase.
sure,
Talbot, I'm happy with. Like, I don't like that it's 2 years, but I mean, you're giving us the
at
next,
2.5 each, yeah.
like, you're just giving the next person the spot in the rotation. We weren't happy about Reimer, and then Reimer ended up being, I mean, good for us. I would say overall good was having Reimer on the team. So yeah, having Talbot here for 2 years, and I think he's making a little more than what Reimer made. I think Reimer was like just a 2 mil. So like, yeah, that 500K, when you start adding it up against 10 players, whatever it matters. But if you do it here or there, sure, it's fine. But Jack Campbell, why? Well, again, we'll talk later in our Yzertrust, but when it just comes to the signing, I'm really struggling to figure out why.
I mean, I don't think we need to delay much more. I think we can get into that topic because all we have after that is Sheldon Dries, who I've never heard of in my entire life
Yep,
until
who?
this moment, and then Christian Fisher. I honestly, the signing of Christian Fisher might be, yeah, it's my second favorite behind Kane, just because there were definitely a lot of moments I liked what Christian Fisher
Yep.
brought to the table last year. So I think that's your best signing. Was your 2 best signings were re-signs.
Yep.
You didn't bring in anything new that it doesn't get the casual excited, and it doesn't get the diehard. It doesn't. I don't see anything here that grows the trust in a diehard fan either.
Nope.
And again, it's approaching 6:30. I'll refresh it again. Something still could happen. Trades could happen, but man, this time last year, it felt like Yzerman was pushing for something. And I don't feel it here. So speaking of Yzerman, the thing I said I wanted to talk about before we ended anything here was I want to talk about where we're all at, and you tell us how you guys are feeling. Where are you at in where's your Yzertrust meter at? Because I was full 100 for years of, you know what? He took a terrible team. Give him time. Let these guys develop. Just let them develop. They're going to develop. I promise. Don't worry, guys. They're going to develop. And we're getting to a point now where it's not that I don't trust. I will say this. The blind trust is long gone. Before it was blind trust. Before it was he can do no wrong. Whatever he does, I am in. I'm going to trust it, and we're going to see where it goes. Kind of like how I am with Brad Holmes with the Lions. They have blind trust on me right now.
Yep.
Yzerman has lost that with me. And it's not like he broke it or anything. It's just the patience is wearing thin because every year it becomes, well, it's been 4 years. He has only had 4 years. It's hockey. Well, it's been 5 years. And then it's going to be approaching 6 years. And then 7 years. And then when you really think of the window we're talking of being a Stanley Cup contender, you're realistically starting to inch toward a decade of him being GM before you can even I'm not talking just being in the playoffs. I'm talking being able to point at this team and be like, that is a Stanley Cup contender. We are still so far from that. It's a little worrisome, and it's starting to feel like maybe some mistakes were made along the way, which I know you've got some highlighted. I'll let you know. I won't touch on everything and leave nothing for you, but what are you thinking?
My patience is dwindling, and I felt it the same way that I felt with Lalone. is that it's kind of feeling like there's just going to be a wall where I just have none left to give. Like I'm going to give so much. I'm going to be very lenient for a very long time. And then it feels like I am very quick to the, what are we doing? Like, okay, at this point, we've
What's the plan?
sat back, and when it came to the signings that we did last year, any questionable move that Steve has made, I would say that there is a degree of blind trust, but there is also a degree of like trying to find the bright side. Always trying to find like oh, this could mean this. And when I first saw the Wallman trade, yeah, my first reaction was, what are we doing? Like, where could this possibly go for us? And then you sit back and you're like,
You thought it was
okay.
going to pay off today.
Yep.
You thought that was, but I mean, you could make the argument it paid off yesterday with the Patrick Kane. So I guess if I guess Wallman in a second to keep Kane for a year.
But it's hard
Sure.
to say that because of how much cap we have, Josh.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
wasn't that like we opened up that 3.4 to sign Kane. We had
Right, I'm just
30
saying that's
mil.
all we did.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's all we did of a measurable amount of money where you could be like, well, I guess because that's what everyone's saying about the Wallman thing is to free up money, right?
Yeah.
What money did we really spend?
Yeah.
Kane.
Now the next level of that, I didn't take it on the money side. Money side was like okay, yeah, like I guess we could use more money. Who couldn't use more money across the league? Of course, it's a good thing if you open it up. But I was like, we've got enough defensemen now. Like Edvinson moves up and you scratch Hall or Petrie every night or Mata, like however it goes. You're filtering this guy up into the system. Good. This works. Like, and then, we hear the Johansson should make the roster. Wallander should make the roster. I don't know how that's going to happen now when we have 8 defensemen. Think about that. We have 8 defensemen, Josh. That's not counting Wallander and Johansson. We have 4 goalies. That's not counting Kosa. It's making me concerned that the belief in their development is not there. In that, however long Wallander and
Coach part
Johansson
scares me a lot too. The coast, like
that's the one that gets me the least.
Really?
Yes, this is
Because
telling me that
I
Wallander,
thought that was going to be our. I just thought that was going to be a beacon of hope. That was like the lighthouse in the distance for me, of like hey, it's going to be rough waters along the way, and these are going to be replacement goalies. And so every time we go into an offseason and we bring in 2 more dudes that I just don't care about, that we know aren't going to be the goalies of the Cup future, that just tells me that we are not even in a situation where we would feel comfortable bringing up Kosa for a stint, which just tells me, all right, not this year. All right, I guess not this year then. If we went into this offseason and if we only picked up 1 goalie, I'd be thinking, okay, there's an opportunity for Kosa to be brought in for a stint, which screw it, foot's in the door at that point. And then maybe he could steal a spot. Then maybe the next year he gets brought up as like the backup or something. It just, I don't know. I said, he's my lighthouse. I thought that was going to be the sign of we're there.
I think that I haven't lost my trust in him growing because of what we have actually seen statistically. There was that period of time where I was low on him. I'm like, hey, why isn't he even like doing well in the WHL right now? Like, what are we doing? And then the Wallstedt guy is like playing a couple NHL games. And you're like, we should have signed Wallstedt. Like we should have drafted him instead. Like this is a pretty clear like L in the scenario. But I mean, last year,
up for this guy.
Yeah, last year we ran with a 3-headed beast in net. We can very well still do that with Husso, Lyon, and Talbot. It's kind of like what it's pointing to. I know Yzerman said he didn't want to do that. Well, guess what? Yzerman sure seems like he's trying to play catch up and adapt right now to what's available to him and trying to make this team better however he can. And if Talbot's that and he runs the 3-man system again, then I think he's just going to do it. It's just going to be what happens. It's the reality. Unfortunately, you can't do everything you want. But where I would completely be on board with you is if we're 20 games into that Grand Rapids Griffins season and you're telling me that Kosa hasn't played 13 or 14 of those games and he's not the leader and Campbell is the one there to support him, because Campbell's not the NHL one. He just straight up should not be. He was only signed at $775K or whatever, absolute minimum contract. He was down in the Oilers AHL system, and we know their entire goalie situation. He should be the one down there with Kosa. If that's the pairing down there and you're promising Kosa, or I shouldn't say promise, but Kosa is getting starting time down there, then it's fine with me. I still thought that we would go a 2-goalie system and see Kosa up for hopefully 3 games. I would hope to see him somehow, some way through the season, play 2 or 3 games the NHL year coming up. If he's not there, then yeah, maybe it was a little lofty to think that, and then we should be really thinking of him in like a backup role or something next year. But yeah, the goalie one doesn't concern me. The defenseman one does. Where are Wallander and Johansson? Why are we signing? Why do we have 8 defensemen on our roster? Did we learn nothing from last year?
We were kind of like, I don't want to say defending it. We were definitely finding the reasons why it could make sense last year, and I can't do that this year.
But if you're going to scratch the one every night during a 2-13 streak or whatever we were doing, I don't trust you to have 7, and that damn well means I don't trust you to have 8. Okay?
Yep. Like we defended the hell out of we saw the potential of what they might be looking for with Hall, and then we see him getting scratched almost every game.
2-13 streak, and you keep the same 6 defensemen. You have to shake something up. That's a problem with coaching. We've gone in on loan. I'm sure I'm going to go in 10 times more in this upcoming season.
At this point, we would not have Lalone. If it was going to be a different coach, it would have happened by now. So yeah, you got Lalone for another year, and I know it seems like nobody wants to hear that.
But then we look at our forwards. That's where we need the most help, right? So completely contradicting what I just said about, like, I shouldn't say contradicting, but if I'm going to stand true to my belief in that I'm going to take these signings as a sign towards the way Steve feels about the development of certain players, us not signing a ton of forwards, you better have Soderblom, you better have Berggren, they better impact. They better be ready at the NHL level to play on that 3rd or 4th line and do something. Because last year, we went with flooded with NHL talent, and I mean flooded. There were no chances any of those kids were coming up. This year, it feels like it's just completely like pulling back, like, oh man, let's see if they can swim.
Just hope.
It doesn't feel like we're setting them up for success anymore. It feels like we're going to plug them in and be like, do it. And if they do it, that's great. Then our drafting.
I was just going to say, one of the options here that could happen is we can clip this and look like morons in 6 months.
Yeah.
Like if who knows? Like maybe he thinks the forwards are ready and the defense isn't, and maybe we're going to see guys like Berggren or Soderblom. I don't want to say break out, but make an impact year and feel like they're part of the team and not just a temporary filler spot. It's possible, and this is all off-season speculation. There's not much else to do, but speculate. But when you give us this on July 1st, there's not a lot to get excited about. It feels like it's banking on guys that we were given signs from the organization that aren't ready. And now if we were given signs that they're not ready last year, it's really tough for us to just be like, well, must be good this year. I guess we're running it with these guys. And
we gotta know one more thing here before we close out. And it's that there's been wild rumors running crazy about Jacob Trouba to the Detroit Red Wings. I would love to believe that. I would like to have Jacob Trouba on this team. He is, I put it in our Discord. If you're not in the Discord, join Discord. I put it in there during the playoff run that they had, that Jacob Trouba to me is the most emotionally conflicting player in the entire NHL to me. The things that he does on ice, sometimes I go, man, I don't want that on my team. But then you see the stuff that he does, off the ice, you see how he is with his teammates and everything, and his community impact, and that it feels like he actually has a good head on his shoulders in general with I don't know, social things, I guess, when he's going out saying that you need to get, checked for cancer and stuff like that. He doesn't have to do that. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to boost him up too much. I think he would add the toughness that we ask and lack on this team, but I'm not taking a non-defenseman. So the one thing in my head right now that has been rumored and, worthy of actually speaking about is no longer good. No longer good to me to get a 9th defenseman. As much as I would love for Trouba to be, Sider, Truba is our top defensive pairing. Sherrod, Edvinson, number 2, and like Haller, Petrie, and Mata is our number 3. As happy as that would make me, I am now accepting that there's no world where that would actually be good.
Yeah. Overall, it seems like the roster is in this. It's not in a comfortable state. In some places, it feels like we're weak in terms of missing something. In some areas, we're bloated, and we can't bring up the talent that is supposed to be our future. Yeah, there's, to kind of just round out the whole Yzertrust thing. It's, for me, I won't speak for both of us, but generally speaking, while it's not super low, it's for sure fading. The Yzertrust is fading, and that honeymoon phase is gone. We are in business mode now, and I don't see it anymore.
To be so close to the playoffs and feel like we have only gotten worse when you see those other teams arguably get better.
Yeah, but you could also make the argument that if you make that and get swept and get dominated, you feel worse than you do now. So it's like, who knows? Who knows what could have happened if you made it? Or you could have won a round. You could have stole a round, and then we'd be super optimistic that we're going into this year with a full year of Kane. But the reality is, it's tough right now. It's tough because we're better off than we were, but the future doesn't look as bright to me as it did even a year ago.
With Raymond and Cider. It's happening.
If something does happen on that, I'm sure we'll have a video on it. Make sure you guys sub. See you in the next one. Talk in the comments. Join the Discord. See ya.